Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this evening's meeting of the Planning and Regulatory Committee, which is being filmed for live or subsequent broadcast. Attendance at this meeting means you consent to being filmed and any images and sound recordings being used for public broadcasting or for training purposes. The notice provided at the entrance of the council chamber gives further details about the use and retention of sound and image recordings by the council. I will briefly pause should anyone within the public gallery wish to leave. Okay, no, okay. Could I ask for all mobile phones to be switched off or in silent mode, please? Could I also ask all members to ensure they mute any tablet device? Could I also remind members to activate their microphones before speaking and to switch off their microphones once they have spoken? Item 2, apologies of absence. Have we any, Mr. Billington?
Thank you, Chair. We've had apologies from Councillor Crump and her substitute is Councillor Salibi. Apologies from Councillor Perkins and his substitute is Councillor Quant. Thank you.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. Mr. Billington, have you received any?
I haven't received any, Chairman, prior to the meeting.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest members wish to make at this time? No. Okay. Item 4, consider the minutes of the previous minutes held on the 26th of May. Are we all agreed? And item 5, are there any matters arising from those minutes? No. Okay. We'll move on to item 6, which is applications for determination. There are 3 items before us this evening. The first one is actually listed as item 7A in the pack, which is on pages 3 to 16 of the paper copy or 5 to 18 on the online version. I will now hand over to Louise.
Thank you, Chairman. The site is Cross Nursery, Newgate Street Road. This application seeks modification of Section 106 obligations to reduce developer contributions in line with project viability. Overall, there have been 3 objections from occupiers of neighbouring properties. This application was reported to committee May 2026, where a decision was deferred for more information, including the options open to the committee to determine. It is noted that there is a typo in paragraph 2.7 of the update report. The proposed financial contributions of £50,000 per dwelling produces a return of 15.8 for the developer. As before, Hertfordshire County Council Growth and Infrastructure Unit have no objection and have sent a further email requesting that should the modification be approved, could the education contributions be pulled to afford greater flexibility? Officers see no issue with this request. It is recommended that the Section 106 agreement is varied to reduce developer contributions to £50,000 per dwelling unit. This should allow the scheme to produce a profit within the suitable range of 15 to 20% GDV as set out in planning practice guidance. This should be subject to a later stage review mechanism to allow further contributions to be collected by the council should the scheme become more viable in future. I'll just run through the slides just to remind you of the site. So it's Cross Nursery on Newgate Street Road. That's a recent image of the site. And that's the plot layout of the proposed development of 14 self-build dwellings. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We have one public speaker on this application, Mr. Sarno, who is the applicant's agent. Mr. Sarno, if you'd like to come and take a chair. if you switch your microphone on, and you will have 3 minutes with which to speak to the committee. At 2 minutes 45, you'll hear a tap on the gavel, and at 3 minutes, a double tap. And anything beyond that, I might have to intervene to stop you. Please begin in your own time.
Okay, I wasn't expected to speak today, just answer questions, but I can just run through some of the points today if that's of interest. I think the main points are that this is not a normal housing development in the sense that it's a GB2 policy, which meant that development was restricted from day one. When developers first looked at the site, may I add that it's a family site belonging to my uncle, my auntie, my father. It's a much of a family affair. We're not professional developers at developing this land and doing this kind of thing day in, day out. But the site was restricted. When developers looked at this a few years ago, they were going to put 30 to 60 homes on here. Because of the policy itself, it's restricted to 14 houses. So you can imagine that's a big restriction from day one. The second point being that the neighbouring development, Ashfield, actually set a precedent of a contribution of £77,000 per home. This was at the very similar time to when the development had outline planning, but for some reason the planning department, we'll say forced, put to us £175,000, which is nearly £100,000 more per home. So that's more than double. Since then, the world has definitely changed. Prices have gone up with the Iran war. Materials have gone up, labour's gone up. It's more and more difficult at the time. We've even tested the market, to see if other developers would be interested with what is currently being offered, and there's been not any interest at all. So essentially, I think the options are that this site can't go ahead as it is. There'd be nothing in it, if anything, a loss as it stands. One step would be to agree at least what Ashfield had, but obviously the times have changed. Our ideal situation would be to have what the council's paid for report recommended, which was £50,000 per home. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. And you say you're happy to answer questions from the committee? Okay. Are there any members wishing to ask any questions? Councillor Hassan.
I'm not quite clear where the original figure, 175,000, came from and why you agreed it in the first place. Didn't you do any kind of analysis to understand whether it was affordable or not? And have you also looked at your own development costs? I mean, the Section 106 is one example of that, but that's for the infrastructure. But the other part of this is, have you actually looked at your own cost, your own model, and how have you actually tweaked that? Because I don't quite understand that. So sorry, that's two questions.
Firstly, thank you for the question. Firstly, the data from these types of sites was very new at the time. About what they're priced at it was a very new policy at the time. The land values and the values of the homes that would come from it were unknown. And as I said, we're not professional developers. We're a family that went for planning, and we're hoping to bring in builders to essentially do it. But that's we've now done a research and realised that what the council were asking of us was too much and much more than we're asking others. And even since then, that probably figures even too much as well. So.
Sorry, there was a second part to that, which is how have you've reviewed the Section 106 monies, because you're saying you have a better understanding, but what have you done in terms of looking at the model that you propose and what other savings have you done? So 106 is one part of it. So what other assessment analysis have you done of the model itself?
The assessment was done by, paid for by the council. That was a professional assessment, essentially looking at all the different aspects of it. there's a way, there's standards. I mean, building is generally quite the land has a certain cost, the build a certain cost, and then there needs to be a certain amount at the end for any developer to take it on. And so the assessment's been done by a company that you paid for, and essentially worked out that.
Sorry,
Sure.
you propose a model of 14 plots and it's self-build. Based on that analysis, what viable assessment did you do yourself to understand what your costs were? Because you're saying that the Section 106 is high, but what differences are you making now, not only to the Section 106 that you're proposing, but how have you assessed your own model? Is it still going to be 14 plots? Have you reviewed, have you looked at your pricing? I mean, it's just to understand what contribution are you making to ensure that you will make, your your gross development value will be higher? Just to understand that, please.
We initially proposed more plots, and we were restricted back to 14 plots. And as for everything else, there's nothing else. I think initially it was about 18 to 20. I think what was proposed before then, with pre-planning with other developers, was about 30, 35. Yeah.
Just to confirm, it was done under policy GB2. So there's restrictions on numbers that could be applied on that plot of land. So that's what he's referencing. But I understand what Councillor Hassan said, and I don't think I heard the answer was you want the people of Broxbourne to take it an impact of £1.5 million. What impact is your business taking as well?
Thank you.
Just to level it up.
So there are certain quantums, which is why the viability study was done. So a viability study, as I understand it, is that they take into account what can be built on something, what someone would pay for that land, what they would build it for, and then what the margin is at the end. It's like three things, really. And based on all that, if you're not hitting between 15 and 20, it becomes unviable. So very simply, it's unviable as it is. And therefore, the contributions asked from Broxbourne make it unviable.
So is it unviable at £77,000 per plot?
My understanding is that it's unviable at £77,000 based on the viability report.
For your own business model?
No, your
own business. What does your own business model say?
It's not about a business.
Because originally this was determined as a self-build.
Yeah.
Which you wouldn't then be impacted in building cost.
Yeah, it is. Everything is incorporated, whether it's self-build or not self-build. That someone's left to build it at a certain price, which dictates the price of the land. If someone's building it out, and this is self-build and custom build as well. So the idea is that these are kind of undeniable quantums, really. There's a formula that happens, and if it doesn't fit that formula, there's nowhere else. If anything, costs have gone up in other areas. You can't cut corners. You can't, reduce the number of glass panes you put in a window. You can't reduce the number of tiles you put on a roof. You can't, there's nothing you can really do. So I guess what they're saying is that the only route to make this viable is for the contributions to go down.
So when you offered 77,000, where did that figure come from?
That's what Ashfield has. Which
yeah, but my neighbour paid £500,000 for their house. I'm not going to pay the same.
Pardon me?
That's a ludicrous business model to base it on somebody else. Plus, next door, you keep referencing next door, but do you agree that And you said that sets a precedence of so much per plot. There's 106 is a bespoke. There is no precedence. And next door, I've got a path to build as well. Additional 2. They're 106 funding.
They've got an additional
They got a path.
half of the number of houses.
Yeah. Yeah, Springfield. Yeah. Yeah, but that was a part of the letter as well. So they've got a path to build off-site, you know what I mean, or part of their application. But so you just plucked the number out of the air because that's what the neighbour paid. So if the neighbour paid 150 grand, that's the number you would have plucked out of the air.
No, actually, we just use it as an example. We're actually asking for lower than that.
Yeah.
Because from what my understanding is that there's a process for the viability studies, and that is that when.
But there's a process for business to do a viability study as well up front.
Well, this was essentially a planning application at the time. Said the world has changed, costs have gone up, regulation has gone up.
I work in construction. I understand. I understand that. I understand it's a move. It's fluid. I understand that. I genuinely do.
Mm-hmm.
But what I can't grasp is you've offered a sum of money without quantifying that sum of money.
Offered what sum of money? Pardon me.
So you offered £77,455.
No, we didn't offer that.
You did.
No, we didn't.
As part of your application, to modify this, that's what you offered.
I thought we were offering.
You offered it. You asked for it to be reduced to that sum.
I thought it was offered as 50.
And then it went off.
I think it was offered at 50,000, I believe.
No, you didn't offer the 50. That's what it came back with from the independent assessor.
Right. Okay. Apologies. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you offered as a company £77,455.
Yes, I didn't pluck that from the air. That was based on a neighbouring plot that had a very.
That's what I'm saying. So you just plucked that figure out of the air because the neighbour.
I wouldn't say it's plucked out of the air.
There was no viability to that.
It's based on the fact that it's almost identical site, self-build, custom build, similar density, similar.
That was custom build.
They're both self and custom build.
Yours was approved as a self build.
I believe they both can be.
And the Section 106 would have been judged on that.
Yeah. Well, okay. What we would say is that self builds probably earn less than custom builds.
It's less risk.
No, not really. Not necessarily.
Okay, I think we're going to disagree, so I won't take it any further with you.
Okay. Well, I can go into the reasons why it's not, because there's no developer's profit in it. There's essentially just land sales. So actually the profitability in self-build is even less.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think if this was assessed as just a self-build, we'd probably be asking for even less, to be honest. I mean,
yeah.
That's just how, again, these aren't quantums that we say, we don't make these up. There's a reason why I believe you had an independent report done, and it came out less than we were asking for. So I think that very rarely happens.
Okay, no, that's right. So is there anybody, Councillor Pont?
Thank you. I was just wondering, of course, I appreciate that costs have gone up since the original agreement in 2023 for the Section 106, though I don't suspect costs have gone up quite as much as the amount of Section 106 offered has dropped here. I was just wondering what you had actually done in advance to look at the financial viability of this, because it seems at the moment that the original outline was granted on the condition that a healthy amount of Section 106 money were offered. But now, having apparently not done the research in advance to work out if it would work or not, you're now having to come back and massively decrease the Section 106. So I'm wondering why you didn't in the first place do that financial viability assessment and work out what would be a realistic offer.
I would say that the combination of house prices dropping, this house type, particularly large houses of this nature, the prices have reduced quite considerably. And the cost of construction, not just materials, labour, but also all the regulations that come around bionet gain, contributions, insulation, EPCs, SAPs, that kind of thing have just gone through the roof. So yeah, I would say it has actually gone up by that much, number one. Number two, we didn't ask for it to be 170 odd £1,000. It was forced upon us at the time. So it was either don't get planning or take that contribution. And so we've tried since then to make it work, and we haven't made it work. And it was only then that we found out that other sites were allowed to have much, not only less of a contribution by 100,000 per plot, but also had much better payment terms. So you can say, yeah, we negotiated badly. That's all I can say. And we didn't actually know at the time that there was an opportunity to bring it as low as that.
I appreciate some of what you're saying there, but I'm struggling to understand why you would accept that condition. I understand that you didn't set that original number, that was the council's suggestion for the Section 106. But I struggle to understand as a developer why you would then accept a number for the Section 106 money, knowing that that wouldn't be financially viable for you.
Well, at the time, some of our studies maybe, a bit buoyant on some of the costs. Maybe we thought if the house price has gone up a bit more, maybe it was post-COVID, some of the prices would come down. None of that happened. Actually, the opposite happened. So it may have been the case that at the time it was viable, but 100% is not now. And the whole point about this application is that in the event that this happens, this is what this kind of this route is for.
Councillor Hassan.
Hello. There seems to be, I agree with what Councillor Crump was just saying. And also in a sense that you didn't build any contingencies in. But what worries me is on page 3 of the said viability assessment by Dixon Cyril Partnership, you provided the information. They asked for live information, but that wasn't forthcoming. So they had no updates on the information and the live information. So they only plugged in the information you gave to them. So there was no checks and balances. And I still don't understand. You've asked for the Section 106 to be reduced by 1.5 million, and that's the 50,000 per dwelling, or 1.1 million if it's the 77,000. That's huge infrastructure for the residents here. And how would that be plugged? Because you will still go ahead and do your development, and at the same time those costs still exist for the council. So it's a case of how would that money be raised, and it's about getting that balance right. So I can understand you're looking at your business case to reduce the Section 106, but I still don't understand what sacrifices will the company be making so that we get a balanced overview. And that's what I'm missing from your feedback. Thank you.
Can I ask for a suggestion of what can be done?
It's not for us to make suggestions for your business.
I'm at the moment, there are certain costs that go into it. You can't scrimp and save with these. Again, this is why it's a very simple formula. You can't use fewer bricks. You can't use shallower foundations. You can't, there's a certain way it works. There's a reasons why viabilities are done on 15 to 20%, because market downturns can be that much. And developers generally, if they don't develop to that level and there's a 15 to 20% downturn, they'll go under. So there has to be that level in there. And that's why viability studies that have been paid for by the council have suggested that. So there's nowhere else, anywhere, that can be cut, number one. Number two, can I give you another example? You say we can't look at other sites, for example. But if you had a house that was the same size as your neighbour's house and they were paying half the council tax that you were paying, would you be happy about that? You could say, well, it's okay because actually the double that you're paying is actually going towards infrastructure. But there'd be a process in place which said, actually, my neighbour's paying only half, therefore can I get it revalued? And the council would revalue it and bring it down. Or they bring theirs up. Now, you don't have the option to bring up Ashfield, but you have the option to bring that down this to make it viable. So, if you start thinking about it in those kind of lines, it's hopefully it's kind of understandable. But these are not quantums that we made up. I didn't pluck this from the air. These are standards that have been written in reports that have been instructed by yourselves. So, we're not making it up.
Councillor Saracusa.
I've got questions for the officers.
Oh, okay. We'll wait. I'll wait. Okay. So, sorry. Is there anybody else with a question? Councillor Daniel.
Well, I have to remind members that the figure 77 grand isn't plucked out of thin air. It came from the independent review that said at 77.5 grand, the developer would just about break even, earning just over 1%. And of course, we have to look at nearby properties. Developers have to extrapolate house sales to build financial forecasts. So I think it would be unfair on the applicant to say that these numbers are based out of no information at all.
Okay, so that wasn't a question, that was a statement. Okay. Okay. Are there any other questions? No. Okay. Can I thank you genuinely for taking a seat and answering questions of this committee? Thank you very much. If you'd like to return to the public gallery.
Thank you very much.
I will now open this up to members who wish to ask questions of officers. Councillor Saracusa.
Thank you, Chairman. The question I have is, obviously, I can understand where the developer is coming from in respect of the Section 106, potentially being a lot more than the others on GB2. So my question would be, what is the Section 106, if we've got any information on the same policies on the same kind of properties? Have any been completed, and has anybody paid the Section 106 up to date? Thank you, Chairman.
Can I answer the first point, and then I'm probably going to rely on Louise to answer the second point, because I think she's been out on site this afternoon. Quite a lot of information there and lots of questions. I think it's worth just summarising a couple of points at the outset. So when the application for this site came in to the council would have been the early part of 2022, I've checked our records and there was no financial viability assessment submitted by the applicant. I'm not saying they didn't do one. It didn't form part of the application submission to the council. So there wasn't in the public record, because it would go online, an assessment of viability. There may have been one. It wasn't submitted to the application. So I can't confirm at that point in 2022, was it financially viable? What we do know is that when this request to vary the obligations was submitted, it was accompanied by a financial viability appraisal submitted by the applicant. And that's dated November last year, so it's fairly up to date. In line with the council's own local plan policy, PO1, that was independently verified. Dixon Searle acted on our behalf in that respect. Now, the applicant's original proposal was for circa 77,000 per plot as a contribution. Dixon Searle did their own figures and ran their own assumptions and queried and challenged some of the figures in the applicant's viability appraisal, and they came out with a figure of circa £50,000 per dwelling would turn a profit of 15.8% based on gross development value. So it is profitable. And national policy refers to a range of profit between 15 and 20%. So that was just above the bottom end. If you were, I'm going to fire some figures at you, so bear with me. And I'm very conscious that the original obligations were quite extensive in their nature, but Dixon Searle have confirmed that on the current viability, that level of contributions would put the scheme underwater. It wouldn't turn any profit. If a developer doesn't get a profit, they don't build. You wouldn't get the housing delivery. But what Dixon Searle did say is that if you take the bottom end of the range, which is 15% profit on gross development value, the proposal could sustain contributions of £62,000 per plot. If we go back to the applicant's original proposal, which was dropping the contribution to 77,000, according to Dixon Searle, it still turns a profit, but it's below the range which is set out in national policy. It's still profitable, though. It's about 14.3% on gross development value. So apologies for firing loads of stuff at you, but the takeouts, I think, are the original 2022 application. We were unsighted about viability as a local planning authority. When this application was submitted earlier this year, the applicant did put in a viability appraisal and they were offering 77. That was independently checked. £77,000 would be profitable, as would 62,000, which is at the bottom end of that range, if you're referring back to national guidance about an acceptable range of profit given developers' risk and etc. But it's each on merits like everything else, and costs and assumptions about established use values, etc., will vary site by site. So it's not a precise science, I'm afraid. But the applicant's original proposal did turn a profit. And on Councillor Syracuse's question about what schemes have been built or being constructed, I'm going to hand over to my colleague.
So I drove by Crouch Lane, so that's Springfield and Westgate. There are homes constructed on there now, and also next door to Cross Nursery, Ashfield Nursery on Newgate Street Road, there's homes being built on there. But I think with their Section 106s, I think they pay once the homes become occupied, and the council haven't collected any monies as yet from.
If I may, Chair, but I think the applicant was saying that Ashfield is at 77. The Section 106 on Ashfield is 77.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Salibi.
Really, will the £50,000 per household be enough Section 106 for relevant infrastructure around this development? Because it's stated here that they won't make enough of a profit if it goes over the £50,000. That's my understanding. So I just want to know that the Section 106 will cover the infrastructure that's required.
If they agree to those obligations, and then they would have to pay those, and they've been prorated within the report from, so each of the contributions would be prorated across, so the education and affordable housing, sports and community.
Can I jump in quickly? So a planning application comes in, and if it qualifies for provision of affordable housing or for education contributions or healthcare, it has to be above a certain threshold. So it's only larger applications usually. So consultees such as the County Council, in their consultation response, will provide us with a shopping list, if you like, of items of infrastructure and what they think the cost is. Now, clearly, if contributions are reduced, the full costs as provided by the county won't be met. So in that sense, there's a shortfall. There is a however here, which is the council has a local plan policy which says that the council will take financial viability into account. So you've got to judge the benefit of having development happen. In this case, it's more housing supply. and you need to take that view about is it acceptable to accept a reduced level of contributions for the benefit of getting development on the ground and new housing on the ground. So that's one for you. That your local plan policy does allow you to take that judgment.
Councillor Hassan.
Thank you. Can I just say the purpose of this report being deferred from May was to come back with a more robust information with options and a better understanding what sacrifices the developer was making if we were being asked to sacrifice 1.5 million in budget gaps. But I can't see that information in this report. I can see a lot more links to it, and I thank you for the effort and the contribution you've made here, but it really doesn't answer the questions. Now, if I look at this viability assessment, as I said on page 3, I'm not going to pretend I know what live data is, but clearly, if that information was requested, I would have expected the developer and the officers to have given that information. So already we're at a disadvantage because we haven't had the most up-to-date information that was requested by the independent assessor. Also, they say that their scope was very narrow and therefore they couldn't ask any supplementary questions. So the scope of the report was very narrow as well. And if you say, is the bin empty? They'll say, yeah, the bin is empty. Here's the evidence. So I know I'm simplifying it. I'm not a housing expert. I'm not a viability assessment expert, but I just struggle a bit with understanding that if the residents are being asked to have a budget gap, a potential budget gap of 1.5, or you said 1.1 million, or it's 1.2 million, whatever the difference is, what sacrifices is the developer making so that we understand that the viability assessment has been assessed at both ends and not just on the Section 106. And that's the bit that I'm failing to understand. What were the options? What are the risks, etc.? I didn't see it in the report.
Well, I'm going to refer to paragraph 2.6 of the report, which is, if you like, the basic summary of what DSP have done. So, you know, in conclusion, they've accepted that the applicant's approach to the assessment of viability is appropriate. They have queried some of the assumptions because there'll be, and I'm not a chart surveyor, so don't ask me anything detailed about this, but there'll be assumptions about percentage of for marketing costs or legal costs or finance costs, etc., etc. And it's usually RICS, the Institute of Chart Surveyors, who provide a range. So Dixon Sawyers will look at what the applicant has provided, and in their experience, they may challenge some of those assumptions. They may say, well, you're pitching that too high, you're pitching that too low. And they have this feedback. I don't know if that's me. It is me, apologies. So they did run their own version. So it's a robust.
Assumption of an assumption. That's the bit I can't seem to get past. We didn't have the live data.
Well, I think we talked at last committee about, you know, the purpose of a late stage viability appraisal is because then you know the value of the product, how much it's going for on the market. So that's the opportunity, if values have increased, to claw back. So any financial viability appraisal is a snapshot at a given point in time, given a certain range of assumptions and figure inputs. So it's never perfect, which is why there is queries which DSP have raised, and they've run their own assumptions based on their best knowledge and experience.
Based on the scope that was given to them, which was very, very narrow. These are the bits that concern me. But anyway, thank you.
Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, right. For me, I'm just sort of digging into the financial viability appraisal, and I know sort of Matt's just said that don't go too deep into the detail, but for me, that's this whole debate is predicated on that report, and I guess the bit that I'm particularly want to understand is it talks about the benchmark land values. And I'm trying to understand the relevance of the benchmark land value. So is there no, do we not take it into account? My understanding was we would take it an account of what the developer paid for the land and what was paid for the land. Does that not come into the viability assessment? Or is there some other calculation? Because it seemed, and of course, the reports in terms of the report that's compiled on behalf of the applicant and then the response by our consultant, there are no numbers in it. It's statements, and some of the market assessments in terms of house prices talked about right move and property values in the area based on square meterage, but I didn't see any numbers in terms of residual costs of purchasing the land. So I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel, just want hopefully a simple answer.
I haven't got, I mean, you've got the DSP report in front of you. I don't have it. I've probably got it electronically somewhere. I've seen viability assessments with 100 pages of appendices where input support, there are various models. There's something called the Three Dragons model. Well, I'm probably going back more years than I care to reflect, where you put figures into the spreadsheet and it will calculate that sort of stuff for you. So I think in the report we didn't want to bombard you with loads of stuff, but I'm fairly certain that DSP as a consultant who works only on behalf of local planning authorities, so they don't wear two hats, they just represent local planning authorities, would have ran their spreadsheet somewhere. If they haven't appended it, then okay, maybe that's a bit of a shortfall there, but they wouldn't have just taken anything blind. They would have run the numbers.
But just to understand on those numbers then, Matt, are we looking at taking, are we looking at, as I said, the purchase costs or the cost of the land, or is it based on something completely different?
That was my question in the last meeting as well. To me, that's a starting point of any.
And that's the bit
viability assessment. Because
I know I spoke at the last meeting that there was no viability assessment to look at. And when I read I've read them all, and I couldn't see, I mean, obviously a lot of it is jargon and talking about things that may be beyond me, but certainly I was trying to understand the point. Does it take into account the purchase costs?
I would hope I'm getting really out of my comfort zone here, but you're right. There are established use values, alternative land values, benchmark land values, and I must admit it's not my expertise. And I, as a planning authority, I'm afraid I'm putting my faith in Dixon Searle to know what they're doing with that. So residual land value is the simple way of thinking about it. All the costs of developing on one side, the value of the development on the other side, and if you're in the black, then that's the value of the land. That is the residual land value. I mean, my sort of viability training from God knows how many years ago. That's what I remember, but. I'm getting way out. I don't want to misdirect anybody here. I'm getting out of my comfort zone. We rely on DSP to advise us professionally on it.
Councillor Hassan.
Can I just ask, have we had any more examples when developers come in this way and ask for a reduction? I just want to know what is the kind of the template that we've got, because what we've got to be careful here is what we don't want every developer coming and saying, oh, cost of living, house prices are going down. And that's subjective as well as this report is, because there's a lot of assumptions built in here. So it's just about understanding, has this request been made before? What have we done? And, you know, how do we prevent this from happening again?
Yeah, so recently we've had former police station in Hoddesdon. So they submitted viability with their application and DSP gave a review on that. And the New River Arms in Turnford, likewise, yeah. I don't know off the top of my head, I'd have to look them up.
But not on this scale.
But in,
Yeah, I suspect that's what's worrying me. It's not at this scale. It's the scale here that's quite, you know, dare I say, surprising or shocking. I'm not sure which word to use, because it's 1.5 or 1.1, depending if you use the 77,000 per unit or 55. And I find, you know, at the front it should really say at 50,000 per dwelling, that'd be a total cost of, you know, 1.5 million. And then you've got the clarity of what the reduction is. Yeah, thank you. So this is the first time we've had it in this scale. We could set a precedent there.
Councillor Serkins.
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, I feel like we're going around in circles. Even reading the report, it does say, look, if it remains unchanged, the development is highly unlikely to be developed. Clearly, looking at the figures, we've got to take into consideration the professional view. In my view, that obviously the projected profit looks quite low to me. I think I'm going to move the officer's recommendation.
Say a few words. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I mean, I think Councillor Syracuse was right in the sense that we are going around in circles to a certain extent, but it's clear that the committee is not comfortable with the recommendation or the offer which is on the table at the present time. And I think there are three basic choices for the committee. One is to accept what's being recommended. The second is to decline that request to vary the Section 106 agreement, and that's all it is. It's a request. It's not like a planning application with a right of appeal and so on. So you can decline that request. Or the alternative is to say that you are still unhappy with the level of contribution. I mean, the level of contribution can only ever be what the site can afford. The question is, what can the site actually afford? And so a third option for you, rather than just a straight decline or accept, would be to ask officers to go away and have a further conversation with the applicant about whether or not there is any scope to increase that level of contribution. And going to Councillor Hassan's point about, you know, what sacrifice is the developer making? Well, the sacrifice in those circumstances would be that if you did manage to increase the level of contribution, the sacrifice would be that they would be getting a profit of less than 15%, which is what national guidance assumes they could do. So they're the three choices for the committee. The other point I would like to make is that the committee needs to be satisfied that even if, or at whatever level it agrees the Section 106 agreements should be, whether or not you are satisfied that the spread of Section 106 is what you would want to do in the context of current corporate priorities, and whether or not they reflect adequately what is required in the specific local area of the application. And what do I mean by that? I mean, you've got a spread on the bottom of page 14, which ranges from obviously the biggest sum for affordable housing through to sustainable transport. Do you want to think about whether or not you want to reconfigure that to something which is more directly attributable to, let's say, projects in the local area rather than being so generic? So, as I say, I think the committee's got three choices and also needs to take a view on whether or not the mix of headings in that agreement are still what you'd want today.
Just to recap, sorry, Councillor Siracusa. No,
You said. I was going to wait to see what you was
right, okay. Okay, I'll let members carry on then. Go on.
I think given that the developers, from my understanding, came to us saying that they would be willing to make a contribution of 77,455 per property, and this was their new figure, I understand, reflecting the changes in increased costs and so on. I personally think that it would be good for officers to go back and look away and see if the developers were willing to put forward that amount of money, even if it is significantly lower than the original Section 106. I'm struggling to see why we would then turn around and say and accept and put forward an even lower amount than the amount that the business said they would be willing to pay and thought would be financially viable. So personally, I would say that officers should go and see if there is potential for that bit more wiggle room and increase Section 106 there.
Okay, so are you formally proposing to defer?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mason.
But based on what Councillor Quance just said, I would second that. I would just like to add the point that was made by the CEO about the changing the heads of the Section 106. I think that's a good point. I think there are things in that list that maybe one would argue aren't necessarily a priority. And I know what one of the priorities locally that is a aspiration of the council or a goal of the council, let's say, is to complete the community centre up there. So I would like to see certainly the community uses. I mean, sort of the improvements in terms of the community centre, possibly health. I mean, my only concern over health and medical services are whenever we put money or try and negotiate money to put behind those important services, we then get sort of told by the NHS or those that look after health services locally that it's not needed, and we've got adequate services when we all know that's not the case. However, I'm happy to see money spent on health and potentially where there are highways issues. But I think with education, primary education, secondary education, I think we've given lots of money that we've seen go into those services over the last few years, and we keep getting told that the headcount of the cohort is going down. People aren't breeding quick enough. So therefore, I think we should dismiss some of those county functions, and we should prioritise. And I'd be guided by local members to say where that needs greatest. But I certainly think some of the things on that list should be knocked off.
Okay. Councillor Hassan.
Thank you. When we talk about local, do we talk about Goffs Oak here? Yeah. I mean, if it's Goffs Oak and it's about reviewing the many, many priorities in Goffs Oak, because we have got hardly any infrastructure. We've got no pavements in Rags Lane, Andrews Lane, bus services. We've got 5 stations, no bus services to those train stations. We've got no playgrounds, we've got no benches, we've got no features, and on it goes. So I would be happy to consider and be part of that process when we review what's needed. Thank you.
Councillor Siracusa.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be happy to move my recommendation on to the Mr. Quant's support. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to speak on this application? Okay.
Can I?
Sorry, Councillor Selby.
I actually move that 50,000 is acceptable because it's at the lower end of the profit margin. We do want development to go ahead. 14 houses is not a great many houses. They are new developers. It's not that they are overly experienced. Prices have gone up. And so I move that we accept the 50,000.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hassan.
Sorry, in the report, it actually does say that building self-build plots are a lower risk. So a lower risk between 10 and 15% is acceptable. And it actually says that in the report. It doesn't have to be in the region of 15 to, I think it's 20%.
So from my point of view, I think deferring is a good solution at this point, purely because if it comes back and there is no change, then consideration to the 50,000 limit can then be given full attention, whether then the committee think that's sufficient or not. But I think giving the officers another crack of the whip would be the prudent thing to do in this instance. Are there anybody else wishing to speak?
Does Councillor Selby have a second of her motion?
Absolutely. That's. I think that we should accept 50,000 as well.
Okay, so we have two proposals in front of us. I'll take which one was proposed and seconded formally first, which was to defer. All those in favour of wishing to defer this application, please show. All those against? Me too. Okay, this motion has been deferred, or this application has been deferred. Thank you very much. I'll pause in case anybody wants to leave the public gallery at that point. Our next item that I'm going to call up is the third item. Which is item 7C, which is land. 7B, sorry. No, I'm going to call up 7C, which is land south of Rags Lane and the construction of a new care home, which is on pages 37 to 72 on our paper copies, or 39 to 74 if you're using the online version. And once again, I'll hand over to Louise.
Thank you, Chairman. The application site is located south of Rags Lane between Burton Grange and Rosemary Cottage. Development involves construction of a 78-bedroom care home, all with ensuite bathrooms and ancillary catering, laundry, communal and amenity spaces, incorporating a welcome area, activity and therapy rooms, an audio-visual room, hairdressers, lounges, dining spaces and quiet rooms over 3 floors. I'll just run through the slides while I present. So you've got the Rags Lane site entrance looking west. You can just see Burton Grange beyond that sign. Looking east, this is a site access lane looking south, and it shows the fall into the site. This site has sort of dilapidated and vacant commercial buildings towards the south boundary. There's quite a lot of parking to the frontage with some storage containers and scrub and bramble. They're the commercial buildings. The containers with Rosemary Cottage beyond. This is to the rear of the site, so this is by the south boundary, looking north. site commercial buildings to the right and Burton Grange nursery buildings to the left. And there's a lane here which falls within ownership of the application site, but it's within the blue line, so they're not developing this lane that runs from Rags Lane down to Burton Grange nursery to the south. That's the next door neighbouring nursery. So the design of the building would be of a traditional residential character, relatively modern in appearance. This is a proposed layout. So we've got the parking at the frontage with a landscaped area, and you've got space for an ambulance bay, etc. Got some CGI's view from Rags Lane. The design of the building would be of a traditional residential character, relatively modern in appearance. Materials include a combination of red multi-brick, timber effect cladding, contrasting brick bonding and recessed brick panels. The glazing would be in black powder coated aluminium frames. If I go back to the layout, in terms of communal garden space, a proposed U-shaped layout allows for a sheltered courtyard to utilise morning sunshine. Then it would provide shade throughout the hottest part of the day during the summer months. The preserved trees at the Burton Grange site to the west would be protected with barriers and reinforcement ground protection during development. Access into the site would be from Rags Lane, as the current situation. There has been a late objection from Hertfordshire County Council in relation to not receiving any obligations. It is recommended that planning permission be granted subject to the conditions set out at the end of the report. So let me just run through the CGIs that the applicant has provided. That's a principal elevation. That's the view looking to the south, so beyond which you've got the Burton Grange nursery, and you can see the access lane that would remain to the left there. View looking towards the northwest. Then towards the northeast. That's the main entrance facade. You can see where the site, sorry, I skipped one, south rear elevation. So with the west elevation, you can see where the land sort of falls down to the south. That's the east elevation. This is the view of the internal courtyard garden, and to the right there you can see there's a terrace which is going to be a cafe that overlooks the courtyard garden. There's areas for seating and garden around the whole building, which is there's a larger garden towards the south as well. That's the cafe overlooking the courtyard. So we've got the lower ground floor, ground floor layout, showing all the bedrooms, etc., and various communal spaces. And you've got the first floor layout. Landscaping scheme, which has been included. And this shows the roof plan. There's going to be a roof well for the plant, so it's set out of sight and it will be screened. I think that's the end of the slides. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We have one public speaker on this application this evening, Mr. Adrian Keeley, who is the applicant's agent and will be speaking in favour of the proposal. If you'd like to take a seat and press the, and you would have 3 minutes at 2:45. I will tap on the gavel just to give you a heads up, and at three minutes, a double tap, and anything much beyond that, I might have to intervene. But please continue in your own time.
Thank you, Chairman and members. I'm speaking on behalf of Care UK, one of the UK's leading care home providers, who are delighted to bring forward this proposal to meet an urgent need for modern specialist care accommodation within the borough. Care UK will own and operate the care home and is committed to delivering a scheme that will become a valued part of the local community. The proposal will deliver many public benefits. It will regenerate a previously developed and increasingly run-down site. It will provide 78 much-needed care bedrooms, offering specialist residential, nursing and dementia care. As your officers have outlined in their report, the scheme is supported by the Council's adult care team, who note a significant local need. It will contribute towards the Council's housing land supply shortfall and release existing family housing as residents move into the home. It will create significant employment opportunities for local people, including at least 60 full-time equivalent jobs. And it will reduce pressure on local health and community services by enabling residents to receive high-quality, round-the-clock care in an appropriate setting. The site also represents a sustainable location for a care home, being previously developed land that adjoins existing residential development and with good accessibility. The design and landscaping respond positively to the local context. The proposed building is set back from neighbouring properties, incorporates generous landscaping, and uses the change in levels to mitigate the visual impact. It will also be highly sustainable, incorporating an all-electric design, air source heat pumps, solar panels, electric vehicle charging, and ecology enhancements. All environmental matters relating to highways, drainage, trees, ecology, and other technical considerations have been found acceptable by the Council's consultees, including the Highways Authority. The development is expected to reduce peak time traffic compared with the site's existing use. Parking provision is in accordance with the Council's standards, and the scheme is supported by travel plan measures, including a minibus and local highway improvements. Care UK has worked positively with the local community throughout the process, including a public exhibition and meetings with neighbours living closest to the site, and we're delighted that there are no local objections to the application. In summary, the scheme will regenerate previously developed land, meet an identified local need, contribute towards housing supply, and deliver significant social, economic and environmental benefits without giving rise to any unacceptable planning harms. We welcome your officer's recommendation and hope that you can support this application. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation to the committee. Are you happy to take questions?
Happy to do so.
Okay. Councillor Mason.
Thank you. Just a couple of points. Care UK, not-for-profit organisation, I guess, yeah? Still, okay.
Sorry. Yes, that's correct.
And then the other point I was going to ask was, I did read in the report there was nursing beds. How many nursing beds are there?
It's not specifically defined. So the way that the home is designed is that all of the accommodation is capable of meeting residential nursing and dementia needs. So it will be dependent on the sort of requirements and the needs of those residents seeking accommodation at the time. But in theory, it could be 100%, but it could be less than.
So, I mean, I only say that from my previous role as the Deputy Cabinet Member for Adult Care at Hertfordshire. There was a significant need for nursing beds across the piece in Hertfordshire. And I know we had a distinct lack in Broxbourne, so that's why I asked the question.
Sorry, as I say, the intention is to provide the full range of care across the site, but we haven't sought to specify in any particular percentages as part of the submission.
Okay, thank you. So, sorry, just one more point then. So, you may not offer that nursing care. So, if the demand's there, you may not still offer the nursing care, depending on what your business model is.
As I said earlier, the business model is to provide that full range of care, and in most homes there will be that full range, but it isn't defined.
Thank you.
Thank you. If I can ask you, in the report, it says that about a contribution of £12,090 for NHS England. Do you think it's appropriate to keep that money in, being that any care home will be a drain on ambulance services?
Yeah, so we've had discussions with your officers on the planning obligations that have been sought by various bodies, including the ambulance group. Obviously, officers have taken the view that in the context of this scheme, those contributions aren't to be sought. However, with regards to the ambulance contribution, if members felt that it was necessary in this case, then I know that my client will be able to make that contribution.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate that, because it sort of references we've got our own ambulance station. We've only got a couple of ambulances. That doesn't provide Cheshunt, really. We get ambulances from all over east of England. The way it works is the nearest ambulance, wherever it's based, is always dispatched to any sort of casualty. So I welcome that you'll be willing to keep that funding in for NHS England.
Yeah, as I say, as I understand it at the moment, that contribution isn't in. The officers' report doesn't include that, but as I say, we're willing to add that in.
Should the committee be mindful to approve that, you'll be happy for that to become a condition?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Hassan.
Thank you. Based on that response, it's really empowered me. Can I just say it's really welcomed here. We do need it. So thank you for the proposal that you've got here. It's very, very good. But I've got a few conditions. Obviously, some of it relates to the officers, but I did notice, and you're absolutely right, it is not a statutory requirement to ask for Section 106 monies, but there was requests from Hertfordshire County Council, like, as you said, the ambulance service, library services, travel plan, and the most important one for me is improve Rags Lane, because there's no pavements there or crossings or anything, fire and rescue service, and also what Councillor Mason's just said, we also need some medical facilities for the older community. So we would welcome some kind of, I mean, the total amount that's been proposed by Hertfordshire County Council came to 98,922. And if we can have a little bit more for medical facilities, it would truly be welcomed. And I know it's not a statutory requirement, but it truly will be welcomed and desperately needed. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the comments. Obviously, I know the request. To a large extent, I will defer to the officers on this point. You know, obviously, it's not a question of whether it's a particular sum. It's about whether those contributions relate to the development. And your officers have obviously made a view on that in terms of their report, which we agree with. Obviously, I've made the point in terms of the fire contribution. I think on the others, because of how they relate to the scheme or don't relate to the scheme, I feel I need to push back on my client's behalf on those.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Daniel.
Thank you for coming. In the proposal, it says that it will help with the local housing stock and it will deliver much needed services to the local elderly, those suffering with dementia, etc. Are there any plans to have a priority list for the people of Cheshunt and for the people of wider Broxbourne?
Not specifically. Experience across all of Care UK's homes is that the large majority of residents are local in any event. It is intended to be a local facility, but to restrict it in any way, not only is it not commercially viable, but it just doesn't really accord with the way that the business model will work. And it can be quite precluding in that sense, because it may be that you live locally and you want to have your relatives near to you, but they're not local. And they, in that situation, might be precluded from living in the home. So we don't tend to do that. But I can assure members that, as I say, the large majority of residents will be locally based.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for our speaker? No. Okay, thank you very much. If you could return to the public gallery. I will now open the floor to any members who wish to ask questions. Councillor Siracusa.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a question. Louise explained the report, the summary at the start. You said something about the county council putting an objection in about Section 106. Can you just elaborate a bit on
Yeah, so originally they supported the scheme, but I think when the report was published and they obviously read the report and various paragraphs such as 7.54 to 7.57, then they've submitted a late objection based on lack of contributions.
The application's been in for 5 months and they've just realised at the last minute. Is that what they normally do?
Yes, they asked for contributions.
They did, but obviously that they come in. They come in at the last minute for more, didn't they? Is that what you're saying? Oh. Oh, I see. Sorry. Oh, I see. Okay, sorry. Okay, thank you.
Just before councillor jumps in, so the county, it was growth and infrastructure, wasn't it, and highways asked for contributions. I mean, lots of consultees will ask for Section 106 contributions of the local planning authority and for us to try and negotiate them. We've put in paragraph 7.56 the legal tests which we need to apply and have been mindful of when we're taking these things into account. So bearing in mind the nature of the development, the potential users of the development, is £36,000 required for pedestrian cycle improvements? We don't think so. It's judgment for you, but we don't think so. The same for libraries.
Sorry, that was me to cut you off. I do apologise. Yeah, no, I understand. That's what I read on 7.53, 7.54. You basically said we don't agree with what they're asking for.
But they can issue with that.
Okay, no, I agree with you guys. Yeah, thank you very much.
Councillor Hassan.
Thank you. Trust me to come in. Can I say, I, as I said, wholeheartedly approved the proposal of the application. It's really, really good. I've got a few conditions. I'm not quite sure how it works, but I'll put it through. I do think the Section 106 contributions are needed. And as well as medical facilities, we're going to have an additional 78 older people here with all sorts of conditions. I think that kind of small, I know it's not a statutory requirement, I understand that, and I've got that from the report, but it's a goodwill gesture to the residents and particularly Gough residents that to make a contribution for all the infrastructure that's needed. And I recognise it's not. The other thing I was going to, so obviously that's part of the negotiation. So my hope is that you can go back and negotiate and make it more specific. But anyway, that's the first point. The second point is, I think it's great that we got new employment in Gough Oak. What I'd like to see, one of the conditions is apprenticeships for local schools, say 3 to 5 per annum to boost local jobs and train our young people. And that's whether it's, we may not be able to, but we've got to ask whether that's been a chef, care worker, I don't know, electrician, maintenance person, a gardener, tree surgeon. It's the variety is huge in terms of employment in the new care home, and it'd be fantastic if our, local children actually had the opportunity. Now, the 11 residents who were consulted, 3 of them asked for Swift bricks, and it's not included. At least I couldn't see it. Could that be included, please? Also, I did go and visit Rosemary Cottage. I went and spoke to them and I had a look at the site as well. And I just didn't feel that what the resident of Rosemary Cottage was asking, stop looking at me. You're trying to rush me, sorry. What Rosemary Cottage was asking for, that like the track not to be used because it's too narrow. And I know, Louise, you did go down there because you mentioned that you went down there. The track is too narrow. The trees constantly need maintenance. And there is a birch, no, it's not a birch tree, it's a lime tree. It's huge and it comes right across their property. So it's about how are they going to be protected? And I felt that was important. And there's no condition, nothing's been picked up here to protect Rosemary Cottage. And they're kind of tucked away in the corner. And it'd be great to see something there. I know this is small and it's just me being a bit pedantic probably. Is there air conditioning in the specification? We wouldn't know that, but it's just useful to jot that down. Is there, in light of, you know, all the hot weathers we're having? I felt the bin storage had a design fault to it. It just didn't feel right. It's 53 metres away from Rosemary Cottage, and each time the bins are going to be emptied, the staff would have to take the Euro bins to the frontage for collection. Now, when I looked at it, I thought that can't possibly be right. How heavy are these bins? And to push them, wheel them, or whatever you have to do, that's what I've read. Whether I misunderstood that, that's another matter. And I just felt that can't be right. And it felt also a little bit too close to Rosemary Cottage. I mean, I just felt that. If I've got that wrong, please tell me. But the collection wasn't going to be happening directly by the collection people, best whoever it is, but it was going to be staff members pushing the bins forward to the frontage. I just felt that couldn't possibly be right.
Okay, do you want them to address, do you want the officers to address what you've raised?
Yes,
there?
please. Sorry, can I go too fast? I thought I threw you the whole list.
Shopping
Then,
list.
I'm sorry.
Right, so the first comment was about contributions. See, I did consult Hertfordshire and West Essex Integrated Care Board to see if they would, you know, want contributions, and they have not responded. There's no comments whatsoever, so that's why there wasn't. Yeah, otherwise I would have included that because that's quite an important one.
You could go back, or we could go back, please.
Not at this stage, I don't think.
It's probably too late in the process. They're given a time to.
They were consulted at the very start of the process. So number 2 was with jobs, local jobs.
Yes.
Yep. So we could do an ESTA, couldn't we? You know, the employment skills and training condition.
If we still having a
Yeah, please.
if we got that bit of SPD still,
I'm impressed.
local skill, is that
Yeah, we've got the ESTA. We do that for.
we do. I can't find it online. It's hidden away on the website. We do have a local employment skills. It's a piece of supplementary guidance now. I can't remember. Yeah, so it might apply for developments above a certain threshold. So you wouldn't expect it to apply for a small scale development, but we can check that.
Yeah.
And if it is applicable, then potentially that's an additional condition here.
That'd be really helpful. Yeah. The Swift bricks.
Have I missed? I think I would have put a condition on, but I might have missed that.
Look, I couldn't see it, but I could be wrong.
28. Oh, details including model number and location of integrated bird and bat boxes to be submitted for approval.
Thank you.
Much more observant than I am. So with Rosemary Cottage and how we protect them during the development, we have a condition 26, which is a demolition and construction environmental management plan.
So it would cover the demolition and construction phases, because clearly there are buildings on site which will come down. So it would cover things like working hours, suppression of dust generated during the demolition process. What else? Noise, vibration. Potential impacts on amenity.
Have we bottomed out the track? Because she was saying, I mean, I looked and I saw it, and as I said, Louise has been there. It's so narrow. But
then they're not going to use that track. They're not. I'd double check that. In terms of bins, I believe that the bin lorry would actually drive into the site and then would collect directly from the bin storage area.
While you'll find that, Councillor Quant.
Just jumping in on one of the points about the Swift bricks that Councillor Hassan made. It may be that it's detailed somewhere else, but I'm just looking on page 66, 7.43. That details the proposed biodiversity enhancements. Lists a lot of bat boxes, log piles, etc., but I can't see Swift bricks in that. There's bee bricks and other things, but not Swift bricks by the look.
I can add an exclusive condition. Yeah.
Councillor Mason.
Chairman, on page 51, 7.8, and the comments of Hertfordshire Adult Care Services, where they were consulted, they said they noted the significant need for nursing care in Broxbourne and support for or nursing and sort of specialist accommodation with those with dementia. Now, I know when I asked the applicant, sort of no disrespect, but I got a bit of a politician's answer from him. Could we condition maybe speak to the director of adult care or someone at county and see that, you know, because there is a big need in this area for those specialist beds, that we make sure that this facility provides a certain number of them if there is a demand. I mean, we want to consume our own smoke, don't we? I mean, where there's a need, let's make sure that, you know, the need's the right need for local people.
I think it would be difficult because the applicant is applying for, in essence, a use class, which is C2, which can cover different types of care. I don't think it's condition breaking it down within that use class so that, you know, a certain percentage has to be a certain type of care, you know, dementia care or, you know, acute nursing care, whatever it is. I don't think that's going to work. I don't think that's going to pass the test of what's reasonable. What you've got the comfort is the development is a care home within use class and use class C2, and you've heard from the applicant that the broad range would be provided. I think we're probably going a bit too far to then subdivide that use class into allocations of different types of care. That's probably it's probably unreasonable, which is one of the tests.
Okay. Hang on. My turn. So I spoke to the public speaker about putting the ambulance money back in, and he said yes. Can that be added in as a condition? It was obviously a 106 contribution, but can that be? How would that tie in as a condition?
We couldn't use a condition. We'd have to probably get a unilateral undertaking, which is a quick and dirty 106, if I can use that term. So we can't, if we're asking for money from a developer, we can't use conditions. We have to do it via obligation. So it would be, so the recommendation, if you were to agree to approve the scheme, we would have to add, subject to a unilateral undertaking under section 106 for that sum of money for that purpose.
Okay, that's exactly what I intend to do now, to formally propose to accept this or to approve this with that undertaking for the ambulance money, and also the jobs about the policy. We do have a policy about local job market. Make that as an additional condition. Okay, thank you. Swift bricks or Swift boxes? Bricks. Okay, I'm happy to have Swift bricks as a condition on my, as a condition. Councillor Selby.
I did notice when I was reading through it that they've got the minimum amount of car parking spaces. With the elderly and their visitors, they don't need so many, and I understand that. But with the workers, I don't feel that the amount of car spaces that are allocated to them would be enough, because there are actually more workers that are proposed there than the allocated car parking spaces, but there's no other mode of transport to get them there. So really and truly, there needs to be accommodating. They need to be accommodating the care workers and staff.
I think there's a travel plan condition. Just let me check and read through. But when I was counting up the numbers, you know, there'd be shift changes, and there would some are part time. So I did calculate that that there would be a decent amount of parking to cover the site.
But the care workers and staff, in my experience, come from all different places. They're not necessarily local, and they're not necessarily full-time workers either. They get them in as and when they need them in care homes.
So quite often I walk past the Wormley care home, and I do, like, every day I walk past that care home, and there's always spaces available. Not naysaying what you've said, and I just felt that level of parking was appropriate to recommend approval on this. So
it's just the area that I'm thinking, because I live in Goffs Oak, and some of the areas do lack the transportation. So I don't know what is proposed with the transportation, but hopefully it will be enough.
Okay, sorry, on that, 7.13 covers parking.
Can we just get when Matt speaks? Do you want to try using the other one, Matt? Because every time you speak, it goes through and it's getting my hearing aid. So if you don't mind, just try the other one. That's it, that one there. That might be better.
Yeah, it seems to be. It's taken me an hour and a half to.
Yeah. My hearing aid up.
Okay, but 7.13 covers parking. So there is short of parking, but so it's short of. The current proposal was to provide 33 parking spaces, but it should be 34. I believe 7.13.
Condition 22, where it talks about, because I did look it up, submission approval of site use specific travel plan prior to occupation. So the travel plan. That was going to be one of my other comments. In the body of the report, it's really clear exactly what is required. But when I look at the conditions, because you're using, you know, short abbreviations, it's really difficult to follow through. So I think I found myself having to look at it again and again. And I didn't know what the process was saying. Once you are much more explicit and much more clearer, could we have another look at this, at the conditions? I don't know what the process is or not. But we fully understand everything's been incorporated.
Going back to the point about the two things there, I'll try and answer both of them. So the level of car parking provision is, for any development, it's going to be a bit of a judgment, bearing in mind your parking guidelines and your policy, which sort of says, you know, to encourage people not to use their cars where applicable, you know, in sustainability of locations. So it is a bit shy if you apply the suggested figure rigorously, but you have a travel plan condition, and the purpose of the travel plan condition is aimed at potential employees to encourage more sustainable. So you've got that comfort. So that's why we've suggested the level of car parking is appropriate. On the more general point about planning conditions, in the report we give you the headline. I mean, it's probably one for the chair as well, and for you as a whole, if you considered that for the purposes of reports, you want to see the full text, it would add some wording and some pages to the committee report. So your agendas are going to get fatter. That's the downside. So for travel plans conditions, they're usually tried and tested, and it's almost standard wording applicable. I mean, many authorities will use travel plan conditions, so it's almost like standard wording. It's over to you whether or not you want the full text. Historically we haven't done it, but
So, yeah, I mean, personally, I've always understood it, that what we're getting is a summary of the travel plan, and then that travel plan will be bespoke and generated once it's approved. But I'm open to other members' views as well.
Sorry, the bins, 7.30. Highlighted it, just think to turn the page. 7.30. There's 1, 2, 3, fourth line down. But it's just misunderstood the statement.
What was the question, sorry?
Euro bins will be taken to the frontage by staff to be accessible for collection. I said, how on earth would staff be expected to do that? Unless I've misunderstood.
So if you look at the where's the layout? If you look at the proposed layout on page. It's basically just moving them a few metres. What page is that?
45.
63.
If you look at page 45. 45?
It is on my agenda, it might be a misprint.
Oh.
That's where the picture is. It's fine.
Page 45. See, it's because they're quite large drawings, they're quite difficult to replicate onto an A4 page. So on the right-hand side by the red line, that's your bin area, and that is just below the substation. So the bin lorry would drive into the site, and then it would turn quite close to where the sort of ambulance bay is, and then they would just go. I mean, it looks about 10 metres.
On the screen behind you, you've got a dark rectangle on the right-hand side on the eastern boundary. That's the bin enclosure, and you can see it's fairly close to one of the exit doors on the building, ground floor level. So it would be within a few metres.
Do you think it's safe and there's no health and safety issues? Fine. You. I think you're dealing with 7,800 people a day.
At the moment, I formally propose to approve it. That's as far as we got with that. Put comments from members should they so wish. Councillor Syracuse.
I'll second your recommendation. Sorry.
Okay, and you're happy with the addition of conditions and the obligations? Yeah, okay. Does anybody else wish to comment or make a statement on this? No, okay, so we've got one formal proposal. That's to approve this application with the additional conditions and obligations. All those in favour? That is carried unanimous. Thank you. Thank you. I will now, Paul, should the people, anybody in the public gallery wish to leave? Okay. Sorry. That's my fault. Okay, if we can go back to agenda item 7B, which is on pages 17 to 35 of your paper copy, or 1937 on the online version, which is land to the west of Berry Green. And I'll hand over to Louise.
Thank you, Chairman. The site is land west of Berry Green Road, Cheshunt. This is an outline application that was reported to committee on 4th of March 2025, where members resolved that planning permission be granted, subject to the applicant first completing a planning obligation under Section 106 of the Town and Country Planning Act for the term set out within that report. National Highways withdrawing its holding objection, the Environment Agency withdrawing its objection, and the conditions set out at the end of the submitted report that was presented. Since that meeting, legal advice is that the council as leaseholder and Hertfordshire County Council as landowner cannot enter into a Section 106 agreement which is enforceable against itself. As being a single legal entity, it cannot bind itself in a legal agreement. An additional condition is required which would prevent any development taking place without the eventual developer being bound by the planning obligation. A shadow agreement would be appended to the planning permission. The report sets out that members are now asked to agree to an additional condition to link the planning obligations to the development whilst providing the same public benefits as was previously approved. Both the Environment Agency and the Highway Authority have withdrawn previous objections to the application. Officers request the recommendation is amended to refer to a new negatively worded Grampian condition binding future interests in the land to the shadow Section 106 agreement. So just to remind you, this was the site at Lieutenant Ellis Way, and it's next to St Mary's High School. That's the application site there. I'm just going to run through the slides that were presented back in March 2025. That's view looking west. That's the entrance onto Lieutenant Ellis Way. Proposed site access. That's the development parameters plan showing the housing and the access road. Means of access plan. That's it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We have no public speakers on this. However, Councillor Greensmith, as ward councillor, has asked if he can speak on this application. Councillor Greensmith, you will have up to 3 minutes in which to address the committee.
Thank you, Chairman, for allowing me to speak. With regards to the 106 agreement and the difficulties, as you mentioned, and you're entering into a Grampian style agreement, looking at on page 32, paragraph 7.29, there's a list of heads of terms for a 106 agreement, and the majority of those services are normally under the Herts County Council. So we as members are councillors to represent Broxbourne as a whole. But on this occasion, I'm speaking as a councillor representing Rosedale and Berry Green, and would ask whether in negotiations money from 106 agreements could be ring-fenced for projects that appertain or are pertinent to Rosedale and Berry Green individually? Because a lot of this, like education, footpath, libraries, that money being generated from our ward will dissipate throughout the county itself, if you understand where I'm coming from. Another point differing to what I've asked, I'm interested, or I just saw there, the Lieutenant Ellis Way Memorial. Will that be affected by the access road?
Yes, so I wasn't the previous case officer, but the chairman has reminded me that during the presentation of the original application that it wouldn't affect the.
In that case, could you consider my request that monies be ring fenced for Rosedale and Berry Green local projects? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I will open this to anybody who wishes to speak on from the committee with any questions. Councillor Hassan.
Can I just say I endorse what Councillor Greensmith actually said, and I feel the same about Gosso, because I think a lot of development has happened in Gosso and the infrastructure hasn't actually happened. So when we say about an area is being developed, it'd be good if we work on the principle that most of that money will be ring fenced to the area it deserves, but not forgetting transport and bus services. Yeah, I mean, what worries me is that we've got 5 train stations and we don't have any buses, apart from 1 or 2 going, but not to all 5. But I totally endorse what you're saying and I would support that. And also, this was agreed in 2018. Is my understanding correct? This was agreed in 2018 or, oh, it's been updated. Okay. It's been updated. But as we said, a lot of money, I heard, no?
So, the application was originally submitted in 2018. It wasn't determined, and then I think in about 2023 or 24, the applicant refreshed a lot of the information, and then we took it to committee 2025.
I'll come back briefly.
No, you're only allowed to address the committee. You're not meant to be questioning officers.
I just want to know when that was actually noted.
It'd be wrong for me to allow you to question officers.
Okay.
It'd be wrong. I wouldn't allow it for anybody.
Fair play.
Yeah. So, so the granting is a condition. One thing that did come out from after the original approval was barn owls took up roosting there. So can we get an additional condition that prior to commencement of any works, a full survey is done to ensure that the barn owls are no longer there? I don't think they are, but I'm not saying they're homing pigeons, but if they've been there once. So
I think as officer, we'd need to check the conditions which were on the report you considered previously.
Yes.
Because obviously they haven't engaged yet. There's no planning permission yet. But I would,
it was outlined.
Yeah. So we can do that check, and if it does need, I would imagine there'd be some sort of landscape and ecological mitigation type condition in there, which remains to be discharged. So if that, again, there's a lot of drafting to be done. And going back to the point Councillor Greensmith made, if I can answer it, if that's okay. So the reason we're coming back to you is we've discovered that the council has a legal interest in the site, and we can't bind ourselves in a legal agreement. So the obligations will still be there, but via a planning condition. The key point is that committee have agreed the heads of terms. So you've agreed the shopping list of infrastructure items and the sums to be attributed. The detailed drafting of the 106 and the definitions of how money is precisely spent is still up for grabs. So I think we can note your comments. And as a general point, we talked about earlier on another item, obligations have to relate directly to the development. So as a general point, the more specific and local the infrastructure improvements, the closer they are to the development, as a general point, that's the better. That's how 106 should work. So we can take that on board. We're not at the stage where we have a detailed legal agreement drafted, but we can take that on board. So I would imagine you're looking at potentially things like how the outdoor play contribution is spent, or potentially how the health services contribution is spent. Is it that sort of thing you'd like us to look at? I'm looking at sport and recreation, and the report does mention Laura Trott. So that does seem to be a little bit specific. So if there's a steer that members can give.
I think it's unreasonable to expect Section 106 contributions to be ring fenced to a particular area. They just don't work like that. I mean, if you have, for example, where we have contributions to strategic street highway network, we've been collecting contributions from across the district towards works on the A10. So clearly they can't be spent on the local area. And people from Berry Green will probably be using the Laura Trott Leisure Centre. So it's about mitigating the impacts on local infrastructure from where people might go. And obviously people in Berry Green won't necessarily be going to school in Berry Green. They might be going elsewhere. They might even be going outside the borough. Coming back to what Matt said, however, is that wherever possible, we try to make sure the money is spent as close to the development site as possible. But to actually build that into a Section 106 agreement, I think is virtually impossible.
Councillor Hassan.
Thank you for that clarification, but can I say there is real genuine concern. If I take Newgate Street, we've got traffic management issues. I mean, I knocked on over 550 doors, and one of the things that came across repeatedly was a level of development and the fact that there's no infrastructure in place. We've got no traffic management, we've got no zebra crossings, we've got no pavements, we've got no cycle lanes, and yet we've had the biggest level of developments going on in Gough Soap. The residents want to know why. So that's why I was proposing to endorse this. I'm not saying everything should be ring fenced, but we should be looking at how monies have been spent, because we're at the point, people are saying to me they can't come out their homes because the level of traffic coming through. It's a real concern.
Yeah, I understand those points. And as I said, we will try as far as possible to make sure that, let's say, highways contributions are spent in the area in which they are collected. But it's not always possible. And as I said, people don't think about ward boundaries, generally speaking. They will go to school in different places. They will drive to different places. They will go and take their leisure in different places. So we have to take a pragmatic view about where you can actually spend it. I mean, there's no library in Berry Green. No, so naturally, if you're going to be spending £28,000 on library services, it's probably going to be in Cheshunt or possibly Gough Soap. So it's not possible to ring fence it. But when the Cabinet comes to conclude about how these monies are spent, they will obviously have regard to the fact that it was collected in one area. So the kind of the general principle will be we will try and get it spent as close to that area as is practicable.
You're not understanding the point I raised. Special projects within.
Mr. Greensmith, sorry, but you're not. I allowed you to speak for 3 minutes. But that's the same as any speaker. You're here as a speaker. So.
I'm here as a representative.
But you spoke. But you're not here as a member of the committee, and I allowed you to speak. I allowed you to speak, and I wouldn't allow any other member to do the same. So, thank you. Councillor Saleeby.
This is relevant for all the general applications, because mostly they are in Goffs Oak Ward. Though I'm not a Goffs Oak Ward councillor, I live in Goffs Oak. So I have to agree with Councillor Hassan on the point that we do have to look at the infrastructure that is missing. So if there are so many developments in one area, then that is where some of the S106 should be looked at to be spent for transport, for road safety. All these issues are a big issue in Goffs Oak.
Okay, I don't think anyone's denying that.
Yeah.
But this application isn't about Goffs Oak.
No, I understand.
about Goffs.
I did just say it was a general comment.
Yeah. So
about all of the, because most of the applications are, and I won't be here next time, so I wanted to put my points across.
Okay, no, point well put. Thank you.
Okay.
So what I'm going to say, so we're here to see about adding the additional condition of this Grampian that allows the development to continue. So, Councillor Hassan.
I just wanted to say that it was just the principle we're just trying to get across about how Section 106 is working. We do understand the legality of it, but it's the practicalities and the practical applications of it and getting a better grip of that, because it is a real concern. But we've made our point, so thank you.
Okay, so Councillor Quan, go on.
I was just going to double check and make a comment myself that essentially my understanding is that what we're discussing here is allowing this application that was already discussed and agreed. We're just making a change to make it legally viable. So these conditions, the Section 106 conditions, were already agreed. So I'd say from my perspective, and this is just a general comment at this point, I see no reason why we shouldn't agree this if there's no material change, but just a legal change to make it actually possible.
That's it, exactly.
I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you. I'm happy to second this. As I said, it's a legal requirement just to dot the I's and cross the T's on an application that was approved a few years ago. But on that, from my memory, was the 106 money covered drop curves, ripple paving, and bus stops locally in Berry Green. That's my memory of this application originally. It was, yeah, there was money. It was just not all ring fence for Berry Green. I get that, but there was money about bus stops and drop curbs and ripple paving slabs. Okay, so are there any other person wish to speak on this? No, okay, so we have one formal proposal to approve this change of additional condition. Supported by Councillor Siracusa, seconded by myself. All those in favour of making the change? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. Now we'll move on to part 2, which is the pages which are given for information. So hopefully members have had a sort of good read of it. So, Councillor Siracusa.
Sorry, can we comment on these?
If the officer's willing to take.
There might be a comment, it might be a general question. Obviously, it does seem clearly, going through it, that it does seem that a lot of these have been allowed on appeal, specifically in certain areas, mainly Goffs Oak. clearly there must be, I guess there's more development there. That's probably what's happening. A lot of the issue, I think it's what Councillor Hassan was saying, was about highways, and there's always traffic and problems like that. The thing that we obviously should understand that highways is county council, and county council do make the rules up. And even though we try and push back, say there's too much traffic, their view is, and as far as I can make out, they want everyone to ride a bike. They want everyone to walk. Even though you're in Gostoke and there's no facilities, like you say, buses, they want a different aspect. And there's a lot of the things moving forward. I think they'll be saying things like, take away car parking space, you need more bike parking. So it's something that potentially, if we are going to push back on, it's going to be pushing back at the county council, because they're the ones on that specific issue that are going to be causing the problems. That was mainly my thing. And the other thing I would say, I don't know whether it's right to put it in any other business, but there's another thing that was going on about on the reports. Maybe next time there's a training session, just a clarification on the members of where certain things are on the reports, just to make it clear how the reports are set up. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. So, any other member got a question on the green pages? No. Okay, so we'll move on to any other business. Is there any other business? Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Chair. Two things, if I could. The first one is the current status of the former Sunset Studios Waltham Cross site. I noticed there's new fencing going up there. And the second would be, if it is through planning, is there any movement on the relocation of the Waltham Cross post office? I'm getting lots of residents that are getting really, really worried about it, and lots of residents who are asking about the Sunset Studios. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are you able to address?
I'll have a go, and I think I'm getting a look. The hoardings have come down because I think it was a matter of record that the studio development won't be going ahead. I think that was announced last year. There are conversations going on with the landowner, and there's a pre-application process. Now, obviously, that remains confidential because it may or may not turn out that there's a future application, but there are ongoing discussions. So I don't think the potential development isn't going to disappear. Obviously, it's a well-located site and it has potential, but there's nothing formal yet. If we do receive an application for development, it will be subject to the usual public consultation, etc., and a decision, no doubt, given the scale of the site, would be coming back before this committee for decision. But nothing formal to report apart from that.
Come back, Chair. Just so it's just ongoing discussions.
Yeah, I mean, if every council, every local planning authority encourages pre-application engagement. That's what national policy is. We are engaging. We're doing formal pre-application engagement, but yeah, but there'll be nothing on the website because it's clearly commercially sensitive, etc. But those conversations are happening. Yes.
Thank you very much. And also the post office relocation. It may not come through planning, but
just to add to what Matt said, just to give you some comfort, those pre-application discussions are not about residential development. They're equally not about an alternative or a different studio use either. I think the studio use is not coming back at all. So it is alternative proposals that are being discussed on that site. With regard to the post office, I think I'm right in saying that it moved originally into TJ Jones. TJ Jones is leaving, I think, at the end of this month or sometime during the course of July. And we are trying to find a way in which we can keep the post office in there. But of course, if the actual shop shuts, then the post office, being a kind of franchise within it, would go as well. But we will try to get a tenant in there, and also to get post office, if not retained, then brought back to the area.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Siracusa.
Sorry, just a question on clarification, really. Is this the right forum for local members' questions? I thought we got a specific SPOC system that we should be using, because obviously, clearly, I understand that Councillor Bowman's got issues or wants to know what's going on in a ward, but I'm not sure it's relevant to the rest of us on certain questions. So, is it the right place, or should she or any of us be pointed to a different direction if we need to know specific questions?
In my view, strictly speaking, if you've got any other business which is related specifically to planning, then it is the right forum. Ideally, if you've got items of any other business, you should notify the chairman in advance. I think the chairman might well have been advised of this particular question. The question about the post office in Waltham Cross is not really a planning issue, so that probably shouldn't have been raised here. But I knew the answer, so it was quicker to give the answer than to argue about whether I should be asking.
Can I just come back? I did email you, Chair, regarding those two items.
You did not, and thank you.
And I did state that it may not be the place for the Waltham Cross Post Office.
Yes, you did, 100%. Councillor Quant.
Well, anything to do with council, just a general
So you have late, don't worry about it.
Yeah, nice.
Sorry, Councillor Quant.
Just a quick one, which I apologise as well, may not properly be any other business. I just wanted to double check, going back to the conversation earlier about the care home application, I just wanted to double check what the ICB was that wasn't responding to requests about Section 106 funding.
The integrated care board.
NHS, basically.
Oh, was it a which specific ICB? Sorry.
I mean, the ICB has got very big now. It goes well beyond Hertfordshire and takes in several counties, I think. So it's that one.
It is in the report, and it's let me look it up and I'll come back.
Is there any other business? While we're waiting, no. Okay. Louise, a moment, so.
It's Hertfordshire and West Essex Integrated Care Board.
Quality of decisions. Yeah, Chairman, I've just on the back of the green sheets, I think it might be worthwhile, Matt, just explaining the position, and it is something which Councillor Siracusa raised in the training session last week about certain councils going into special measures and how you end up being in special measures. And one of the measurements, and it's probably the only one we need to bother talking about, is that the government wants quality decisions. And the way it measures whether you do quality decisions or not is how many appeals you lose. And so if I hand over to Matt, he can say what the thresholds are. We're not quite there yet, but if you were to carry on losing appeals at this rate, you could end up in special measures quite easily. you would therefore not necessarily be able to determine those applications in future. But Matt, over to you.
Yeah, so right at the end of the report, paragraph 2.13, I have mentioned that very recently, it was the beginning of the month, there were 9 English councils who went into special measures. So that would have been on the basis of the quality of their decisions on major applications. So councils, like everybody else these days, are measured against certain metrics, and the ones we are measured on are speed of decision and quality, and that's for major applications and non-major. So there are 4 league tables, if you like. The one we're keeping an eye on, as Jeff just said, is the quality of major decisions. Now it's measured over a rolling time frame, and how it's measured is for all major decisions. And when I say majors, that's 10 or more new dwellings or 1,000 square metres of floor space. So we don't get that many. But the metric is from all of those major decisions, how many are allowed at appeal. And the magic figure is 10%. Every quarter, MHCLG release figures. And as I said, the last but one quarter, in point of fact, 9 authorities, including some local authorities to Broxbourne, Epping Forest, Dacorum and Hertsmere, went into special measures. What that means is an applicant from now on doesn't have to apply to the council. They can apply to the planning inspectorate. They can bypass the council. So the council has no control about the decision. There's a financial implication in that major planning applications generate fee income for the authority. We wouldn't get the fee. So Dacorum and Epping and Hertsmere and 6 other authorities are no longer getting the fee income, and they will be expected to work on an action plan about how they're going to rectify the issue. I've put the green papers on the last agenda, the May agenda. I think there's a lot of stuff in there, but I did put down the most recent figures, and we were at 5%. Said the metric's 10%. That's the threshold. The next available agenda, I'm going to give you the most updated figure, and we've crept up a bit. We're at 5.7. So it's not something to necessarily panic about, but it's something we're certainly keeping an eye on. And putting it bluntly, for major applications, if we lose too many appeals, there could be implications. So it's not a threat or anything, but it's something we need to be very careful about, which was basically why the first part of that report I've looked at since the MPPF was changed and the concept of grey belt was introduced. I've looked at appeal decisions, and there is a trend, which you can tell from the papers there, of appeals being allowed. Most recently, Laurel Park, which was a major. So that's further down the track. That's going to count against us.
Councillor Hassan.
Thank you for the information and highlighting that. But I do remember at the last meeting you did highlight that. Can I just say that a lot of these developments, I'm sorry I sound like a broken record, but it's in Goffs Oak. When we had all the green houses, the green glass houses, it was fair enough because they were prime areas to have developed. We've gone beyond that now. And what's happened is we're now going into the green belt, like Laurel Park, etc. Now, the call for land has been predominantly, I'm sorry if I got the terminology wrong here, but I think it's call for land. It's still happening in Goffs Oak. And my requests to the officers are, we've got to look broader than Goffs Oak so we do not hit this target of 10%. Because if we only focus, if you look at these appeals, out the 6 here, 4 is in Goffs Oak. That is a high percentage. It's probably, I don't know, 75, 80% here. We have got to do things differently here, apart from the same old. So my plea and my requests to the officers are we've got to do something different. And what we've done previously doesn't work anymore. And now there is a bit of a backlash, not a bit, there's a backlash from the residents of Goffs Oak as well. Not only have they had the developments, they haven't had the infrastructure. I know I sound like a broken record, but that's a fact. And we've got to recognise that and put that right. And I think the other part of this, any development that takes place, it can't all go to Hertfordshire County Council for education or anything else. And we do not have the infrastructure in place. It's very well to say, oh, it's not us, it's Hertfordshire County Council. But what are we doing about it? What have we done about it? Because I can see the impact and the evidence on it on Goffs Oak. Now, my plea is we've got to refresh the Broxbourne plan. Yeah, originally it was 2018 to 2033. It's got to be refreshed, I think, by the end of this year or by September of this year. I can't remember, October this year. Right, what are we doing when we call for land? Is it again in Goffs Oak or is it right across Broxbourne? Because there is more grey belt across Broxbourne. I cannot believe it's all in Goffs Oak. So that's my challenge and my plea to the officers. What are we doing about it before we hit the 10%?
Can I just say that we're not in charge of who puts the applications in. So if the applications are viable and we appeal against them, though I don't like the idea of all of it being in Goffs Oak, if we lose on appeals and we go into special measures, we'll lose a lot more. I won't go into everything. We all know here what we'd lose.
I can only agree with that last statement. That, yeah, if we go into special measures, it'll be a bonanza for developers.
Yeah.
And
I think my point has been missed. My point has been if we carry on business as usual and we're using the green belt in Goffs Oak, yes, it will happen without a doubt. You're absolutely right. And so is council. Hang on, the government has changed.
Yes, that's right.
Bear me out. The government has changed the criteria from green belt. They're putting these special challenges, special circumstances, they call it. And because of that, our green belt is now designated grey belt. All I'm saying, the challenge to the council and us is where is other areas that can be developed? It can't all be in Goffs Oak. It's huge. We've got Waltham Cross, we've got Broxbourne. You know, don't make me go through the whole list of all the other, walls that we've got. There is extensive other areas that we can utilise, and that's the challenge to us, to find them. I accept the risk. I know what the risks are, but we've got to do something different.
right. So, is there any other business? No. Okay. With that, I'll end this meeting. Thank you very much for your attendance.